Assalamu alaikum. Peace and serenity to all of you. This is Noha AlShugairi.
And this is Munira Izzadeen, and you are listening to Family Connection, streaming live at onelegacyradio.com. Today we have a special show for you. It is about raising boys. And with us we have two special guests.
And we would like to hear from you. So please call us at 1-800-955-5548. Email us at familyconnection@onelegacyradio.com or try our chat box on our webpage. So I'm going to introduce our first guest. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Yaman Qahaf. And he is the current OC chapter president for MAS, which is the Muslim American Society. He migrated with his parents at the age of 3 to the United States in 1971. Growing up through public schools at a time before Islamic schools, he credits after Allah his parents and the local masjid weekend schools for keeping him in line. Yaman and his wife Dua Alwan moved from New Jersey to Orange County, California in 1992, where they now live with their 3 boys ages 5, 9, and 15. Yaman serves as a commissioner for the City of Garden Grove's Neighborhood Improvement and Conservation Commission. He holds a BS in biology and an MBA. His career focus has been healthcare operations and finance, and currently heads the Patient Financial Services Division for a 4-hospital system in Orange County. Since his undergraduate MSA days, Yaman continues to organize and participate in community events such as leading youth activities, halaqas, qiyams, camps, conferences, seminars, weekend school teachings, etc. And Yaman, mashallah, was actually the mentor for my 2 boys, Omar and Hisham. He was the halaqa leader for both of them when they were in high school. And I'm going to take this opportunity to plug in the importance of halaqas for teenagers. Inshallah, it might come up in our session today. So welcome, Yaman.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And with us we also have Hala Alfi. She has been married to Doug Burpee for 31 years. She has 5 sons. The youngest is age 15 and her oldest is 28 years old. Hala has been an active member of the American Muslim community for the last 25 years. She has been a member of the New Horizon community since its inception in 1984. She has served on the Board of Trustees for 3 terms in the past and assisted in the establishment of the New Horizon PTO and served on the first PTO board. She is also active with the Islamic Center of Southern California and the Muslim Public Affairs Council and the Muslim Public Affairs Council Foundation, and has served on both their boards in prior years. Professionally, for over 20 years, she has worked at Alphagen Incorporated and Clinical Laboratory, with her primary responsibilities being financial oversight and regulatory and corporate compliance. She currently volunteers her time with the Islamic Center of Southern California and with her children's schools. Welcome to the show, Hala.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we're really excited to hear your guys' experience. You know, I personally am excited. I have 3 boys that are young, but I'm really excited about the show because I think we all can learn from each other and our experiences and what you guys have gone through.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll begin with the first question. Stephen Covey, the author of the book, the 7 highly effective habits. Thank you, guys. The 7 habits of highly effective families. Okay, talks about families having a mission statement. So we were wondering, for you guys, both of you, what was it, or what was your mission statement for your family?
Oh, you know, I really loved reading that question because we never actually formalized a mission statement, and I think it's something, you know, looking back, it would have been very helpful to have it formalized that you're going through with it. But thinking back, Doug and I were talking about it, and really it comes down to the hadith that God loves that when you do something, you do it to your best. And so our
ihsan, about being in a state of ihsan.
No. إن الله يحب إن أحدنا
عمل أحدكم عمله أن يتقنه. Right.
And so what we've always encouraged our kids is to always do your best. To always do your best with God, with your family, with your life, with your school, and with that hadith really as kind of as our foundation. And so we do that with using the teachings of Islam, with the Quran, that you value honor,
Right.
your commitment above lesser values. You have to put things in perspective. And the most important thing is that we interact with each other with respect at all times.
Lovely. Wow. This is like the family message, the main family message,
Yes.
which kind of like encompassed everything in your family,
Yes.
life, right?
Yes,
So
it sounds ideal. We haven't always been successful, but when you look at it on paper, you say that sounds really good, and we should always try to do that.
Yeah.
But the thing, go ahead.
And I'm
Munira.
just thinking probably you and Doug probably had that in the back of your mind, or that's kind of what your family was striving towards, even though it wasn't written formally. And I think no family has it written formally,
No.
but we have,
Well, there
a
are.
mission and a vision as a family, kind of where you want to go.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, it was never, we never wrote it, but
Yeah.
that's always what we had as our underlying in how we raise our kids and when we talk to them and they talk to us.
Yeah.
And so we talk to them with respect, they talk to us with respect, and you don't lie, you make a promise, you keep your promise, you have a commitment,
Yeah.
you do your best.
I think I like it when I hear the word best specifically, because best could mean that it depending on the situation, the behavior could be different, because in different contexts, the best will change. So I'm thinking in terms of like, we're not talking about perfection, because perfection is an ideal that sometimes you will attain and sometimes you will not. But your best is something that you can do at any given moment, because it depends. Sometimes I can be patient, because I have enough energy to be patient. Sometimes I'm not going to be patient. But then how do I deal with me being impatient and not having that energy? That's also being my best, or doing my best in that particular
in
moment.
that
In that situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I love hearing the word best rather than perfect.
Perfect, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, thank you.
And Yemen, what about your family?
I think I shared the same experience that I don't think we ever articulated it to our kids or to each other. Since I got these questions, I tried to solicit it indirectly from my kids. I couldn't get one straight answer. So my wife and I kind of sat down, and I think that, I think there's probably one main one, which is along the line of some of what Hala said, which is love for your brother what you love for yourself. Because I think, especially with the age groups being as scattered as they are for us, there's a lot of me in each child, because they have a lot of space in between them. So
and this culture too. We live
culture
in
certainly
America,
reinforces it.
California, OC too.
So it very much reinforces that. So we
Yeah.
try to kind of direct them back to, you love for others what you love for yourself. So if you're going to do something, let's bounce it against that standard.
Right.
I think another important theme, I don't know if it's possible to have more than one
No,
mission
yeah,
statement,
definitely.
was that expect more of yourself, and expect that if you don't like something, then you're there to change the world. So if they're going to, without laying an entire burden on them, but to put a clear expectation. So if they're complaining, one of the boys complained that on our way to a masjid once, going to masjids are lame, which we all know that's a real experience for a lot of us, let alone our kids. And we talked about how he does have the power to make that change. Right. Or even internally, if there's something, in the family or something that you don't like, even about another person's behavior, you may not have control of the other person's behavior, but you have the ability. So we kind of channeled that into, okay, well, you're there to, you can affect the change.
Like you're an active participant in what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
So you need to take initiative, to change it if there's something you don't like. Rather than feel like I'm passive, I'm a victim, and I can't, do anything.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
I think, the way also kind of to work into that is an important reference, that to keep Allah or paradise or heaven as a reference point.
Right.
So a lot of times, indirectly, or say they'll do something really, really wonderful, and we'll tell them how wonderful it is and how happy we are with it. And when you say I love you, I think sometimes we have to put that in the right reference. So part of what we have a pattern, alhamdulillah, of doing is to tell them we love them, but to make sure they know their ranking order. So I love, guess what, there's somebody I love more than you. Is it mama? No. And then is it, grandma, grandpa? No. It's the Prophet ﷺ. And then who do I love more than that? It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, I think that's what kind of greases the wheels for whatever your mission is to make sure that, you express your love to them, but you do it within a context of what your reference point is.
Right.
That's been important.
That's so
to us.
lovely. I personally, we didn't have also a written family mission statement in our family. I mean, I read the book actually later on in, my journey but I thought it was a neat idea too.
So you're listening to Family Connection, and today we're talking about raising boys. So with so many conflicting parenting philosophies going around, what are your guys' parenting philosophies, or what have they been? And then maybe they've changed even. So what kind of process have you gone through?
And you can talk to us about that changes.
Okay. I think we've tried our best in a society that hypes up, superheroes and brand names, and even in our Muslim communities, we have, celebrity sheikhs and all of the and great scholars and great community figures. All of that is wonderful, but we really try to, whether it's at home or outside the house, to reinforce kind of a concept-based parenting or tarbiyah, as opposed to, do it because I said so, or do it because the Prophet ﷺ said so. You should, but that's a logical extension of your love for him, or of your love for paradise, or of your long-term goal. So I think it's been attaching them to values and concepts, as opposed to making sure that they're not attached to a particular person or a brand or an image. Because, a good leader is supposed to not attach you to themselves. They're supposed to attach you to something that can kind of set you free. So
That's
I think
beautiful.
it's more concept-based as opposed to person-based.
Especially nowadays with so many conflicting even ideas about Islam. I mean, around us. I mean, especially in our area too. So I mean, can you give us an example of what would be like? I mean, how would you go about doing it?
Let me come back to that.
Okay. I'm so sorry. Okay. So, Yaman, you wanna move on? Okay. So Hala, go ahead.
Well,
Hala.
Munira, I love that you said that it changes, because your parenting philosophy changes based on a number of things: the age of your child, your maturity as a parent, if you're a first-time parent, second, third, etc. Which child you're talking about.
Right.
Your philosophy changes based on the dynamics that you have in your home. And what you said, Yaman, about the because I said so philosophy. I think a lot of us grew up in the because I said so household, because we're as immigrants, or that we were born and started our early childhood in another country. That was something that we had to work through. And so I've tried through my parenting that because I said so was never one of the phrases that I've ever used.
So you made a conscious decision early on.
I made a conscious
decision. This is not something I am going to do.
Yes, I did that.
And do you have an idea of why did you make that conscious? I mean,
because I didn't like it.
You personally, as a child.
I personally, as a child, didn't like hearing that, because I wanted to understand reasons why I couldn't do something, whatever it was. I wanted to know why I couldn't or why I could. And sometimes it was hard to know, to find out why. And so with my children, I've always tried that we talk about, if there's an issue, you talk about it. At the end, you may not understand it right now, what the reason is, but you know what my reason for my decision, or for me as a parent, why I made that decision. You know what the reason is. We've talked about it. You have to accept it and move on from there. And as you get older, you'll understand the reasoning. And so I have my older kids who say, Mom, I look back on it and I say, yes, now I know why you said X, Y, or Z. And the younger ones
are still struggling with this.
Well, they're not that much younger. The 15-year-old, he's the one who's still struggling a little bit with some of the discussion
some of the
items.
Decisions that you want to have in the family.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But it's I think what's also amazing is that you feel very comfortable setting that limit in place.
Well, I think it's very important to have boundaries for your children.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have to set the boundaries. And work within those. But the other thing that I wanted to say about when I was younger, when my kids were younger, it was very important for me to have control over everything. I from what they ate to what they wore to so many things. As I've gotten older and had children,
Younger.
You know, now,
Yeah.
now that I'm a little bit older, it's don't sweat the small stuff because there's so much small stuff. And if you try to focus on all of that, sometimes you lose
The big picture.
The big picture.
Absolutely.
And so you have to kind of set your priorities as a parent. What are the things that you want to, some things are worth the battle, and some things you can just, you know, they're experimental, they're experiences that they will grow from, and they're not life-altering experiences. And it's okay to let them make those decisions, let them make those mistakes, let them have that
Learn from
stumble
that.
and
Yeah.
learn from it.
Do you have an example for that? I mean, I think our listeners would love to hear like specific examples.
Oh, a specific
I'm
example.
and
sure
I
you
also-
have many.
Yeah, and I want to know when, like, at
When
what
did the
point, when
change?
did that change happen for you to kind of let go of that control that you felt like you had to have when they were younger, or I don't know, how long was
Okay.
that process for you?
I'll tell you, my older 3 kids are 4 years apart. And
Each one? Wow.
No, 4 years total.
Altogether.
Altogether,
Okay.
they're 4
Wow.
years apart. I have a 28-year-old, 27, and 24. And so, and then Adam is 6 years younger than his
Okay.
next brother,
Okay.
next older brother.
Yeah.
And actually, by the time I had Adam
Adam.
and Yusuf, son, you want to wear shorts in winter, you'll be cold. I suggest you take a sweater to school. You know, you want to wear short sleeves, wear short sleeves. You know, I'm talking about silly things like that.
You're right.
But really, you want to wear stripes and polka dots? Okay, wear stripes and polka dots. With my older kids, I never allowed that.
Yeah.
I was a very controlling mother, and I mean, I'm being very honest with you here. I was a very controlling parent in terms of when they were going to eat. There was no flexibility in meal times. We sat down to eat, and this is when it was. Sleep time, nap time, what you wore. It was, you know, time to pray. It's time to pray right now. There wasn't that input from the kids
them,
regarding those simple
Yeah.
things. And you have to teach your kids decision-making skills.
Absolutely.
So how do you teach them as young children? So you want to play with the plug? No, that's a life-altering thing. You cannot do that. And yes, that's where I draw a
the
line and
yeah.
say, this is a no, and that you have to listen to. But you want to wear that? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Open your drawer, pick whatever you want.
Right.
And it's not, you know, you lay out 2 outfits on the bed and do this. That's what worked for my family. It worked for my kids. They look really decent when they go to school now. So alhamdulillah, that worked. They're healthy. They eat well.
Yes.
You know, they're active in school. My older boys are, you know, they've gone through college. They're working. They're
Alhamdulillah.
They're you know, wonderful young men. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. A blessing.
Alhamdulillah.
So you, for the 3 older ones, because you said you were very controlling of them when they were younger. So I'm thinking, did you let go somewhat of the control as they grew older? Specifically the first 3.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I had to let go. Actually, let me tell you, the other defining thing was just virtue of the number of kids that I had.
Yes.
You know, 4 kids and then 5 kids. I found that I really couldn't control everything.
You didn't have time.
I didn't have time.
And energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was no time, there was no energy. And I felt for so many years after Yusuf was born that I was, you know, the top that, like, you know, it's spinning. But it's not balanced. And that's what I felt my life was like. I was not balanced for about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Until he started
Going
school.
to school. This
Yes.
is your youngest.
This
we're
is my
talking
youngest.
about.
So I
Yeah.
had 5 kids. You're dealing with an infant, a toddler, an elementary school, 2 middle school kids, and then
a
you have
high
2.
school.
Well, and then you have 2 high school kids, middle school, elementary school, preschool.
Yeah.
And so my life was just going in all different directions, and I had to be a different type of parent with each of my kids based on their age. And so I'm trying to be, you know, a mom, get on the ground, play, and then intellectual with the older one, and, you know, doing things like that. And said, okay, I can't control everything. What do I need to let go? And so I let go of things, and I found that it was a much happier household when I let go of a lot of those controlling factors.
That's so very interesting, because I mean, I had my first 3; they were very close together, so I actually let go of the control very early because because I didn't have a lot of time, and there was no one to help me, so it was tough. Okay.
So, what were some of the specific challenges you faced in raising your boys? And I think this is kind of, you know, it's a huge question, but I think,
exactly.
you know, especially somebody like me who has younger kids, I can project what some of the challenges could be, and I've gone through some of the challenges. But what kinds of challenges have you guys gone through?
I think as a guy, one of the biggest challenges is finding other dads you can relate to.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, that's
huge.
It's been I think it's been and continues to be a struggle. I think dads are more reserved. Not that I talk to that many moms, but seem to be more reserved than others, to share, to let down their guard. You can't be really close friends and get somebody's advice or solicit advice without airing some of your dirty laundry. Yeah. And their advice isn't, frankly, all that believable unless they let you see some of their dirty laundry. And part of it is a manners thing and a taboo, I guess. But a lot of dads are reluctant to do that.
I think also it has to do maybe with the degree dads are involved in the family life. I mean, specifically you, mashallah, is very involved in your family life. I mean, I know just because I know your family. But I'm thinking of other dads who see their role as just the provider. And so we go out, I work and come home, and then I expect to be fed and taken care of, and I'm not involved.
Well, if they don't have a connection, then we're not going to have very much to talk to you about.
No. Like, so I mean, it's like this is the mom's job. Until the boy is like maybe an adult, and then I can actually connect with him, because then we're on equal footing or
then
something.
It's
too late. It's too late.
But it's frustrating as a dad who does try to be involved in scouts and their activities and all that, when other dads have the expectation that you can take care of my kid, but I'm not going to help you.
Wow.
It's not only you can't relate to them as a dad, they kind of dump at you when you attempt to solicit them. So
yes. And especially for you, because you've been so active in the Muslim community in so many different aspects. So you see it all the time.
Right.
Yeah. So
you're listening to Family Connection, and we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back. You're listening to Family Connection at onelegacyradio.com, and you can call us with with questions at 1-800-955-5548, or email us familyconnection@onelegacyradio.com, or use our chat box on our webpage. And today we have two special guests discussing how some of the challenges in raising boys. We have Yaman Qahf with us in the studio and Hala Alfi. And so right before break, Yaman, you began to talk about some of the challenges in raising boys. And you talked about how for you as a father specifically, how difficult it is for you to find support from other fathers. So
if we're at an activity or we're running a children's program,
right.
The majority of volunteers on the boys' side are young college-age guys, bless their heart, but there's absolutely no dads involved. And then you go to the equivalents with the girls, and you have the college-age girls helping out, but there's always a handful of moms. And that provides kind of the backbone, and that's a tremendous support, and the boys see that. And I think boys growing up and going to camps and conventions and community activities, never seeing or rarely seeing adult males involved, they get the message that they're not important.
Yes.
And they they're kind of relegated, and they get maybe they get jealous because it seems like more resources are going toward the girls, but it's a function that there's more adults involved.
I mean, I know personally as a mom of two boys that it was difficult to find even things or activities for boys specifically. And I mean, the minute I heard that you're doing the halaqa, and I was like, alhamdulillah, that's a blessing coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because I was lost. I didn't know what to do. So it's a struggle for the boys in our community, especially if we're talking about we want to strengthen their Muslim identity. That's not going to happen in the schools, especially public schools. It's going to happen as an extracurricular activity. So if we don't have male role models who are willing to put the time and energy to do that, then where are the boys going to go?
And it is true that dads are, at least we believe we are very busy and have a lot going on and have less flexibility with our schedule, but everybody can do something.
Yeah.
Some can only contribute financially. That's absolutely all they can do, although that's a smaller minority than what they think. But everybody can contribute somehow. And I think that a lot of that starts at home. A lot of dads find it really glamorous to cut the cord when the baby's born and to be in the delivery room, and that's really great. But I think there's a little bit too much focus on how hip and wonderful and friendly that is for the mom, and it is, and that should continue.
Yeah, of course.
But that's the glamorous part, and then the hard part is, well, you need to connect through the everyday activities, through tucking them in and bathing them and waking up at 2 a.m, not because your wife can't do it, but because
you're a father,
because you want to connect, and you're not going to get that connection back unless you make that you make that effort. But,
absolutely.
I mean, one of the other big challenges, I have to say this as a husband, as a dad, is disagreeing with my wife, and I think I think that's two ways, which is, to all the dads out there, it is true that your wife probably has more information, whether you agree with her or not. She's exposed to a lot more information, and you need that information in order to do your dad job. So a lot of times I would say to her, why are you doing that? He's lying. And I completely don't understand, her approach. But then later on, when I'm settled down and my ego is not as injured, then I have the opportunity to talk to her and understand, and she'll walk me through it. So I think I've learned a lot that way. But that's part of the cost of being involved. And I think to the moms is please see that we genuinely don't have some of the information that you guys have. And we need that encouragement and support and sometimes hand-holding. I love it when my wife tells me, say this to him. I mean, if it were only that easy all the time, but I think that once in a while it's okay to do that. And I think that as long as it's done in a way that's loving and supportive. But I think that's been that's an ongoing struggle. It's just I genuinely don't understand a lot of what she does, and I think for a lot of dads that causes us to withdraw. It causes us to feel like, well, I can't make that difference, or I can't possibly be as skilled as her. But
I think that's a big point, though, because I think a lot of times dads feel like mom knows everything, or mom, has this like, well, I know what's going on. So dad kind of goes, well, I'm not going to get involved then. And so, I mean, that's my question to you. How do you then bridge that gap and kind of make that connection on your own terms, not as like the sidekick to mom, but as your own relationship? Your son?
You have to find a point of connection. I don't want to skip ahead, but I mean, it's different for different people. Again, the fun stuff is fishing and swimming and camping and stuff like that. But there's everyday mundane things, and I think it depends on everybody's personality. I think for me, one easy connection with my kids is my kind of nerdy sense of humor, and they all get to make fun of me, and that means you have to you have to move over from the old school respect thing. So if you hang around us, you might hear one of my kids saying to me, "You go, girl," and it's a funny little thing. But in other aspects, it might be considered disrespectful. So I have to kind of change my standards for what's disrespectful because I want that connection.
Right.
So humor provides an input. For some people, it's sports. For other people, for one of my kids, he's very very artistic and has a lot of verbal and draw and other types of expression, and I think we can connect on those terms. So you have to find something,
and finding what your child likes, and kind of connecting on that level,
observing that, and then Okay. Other challenges, Iman?
I think another big one for us was just learning about the school systems. Our boys were in more than one school, and it took us several years looking back, more than I would have liked. I don't know if you shared this experience, Hada, or not, but I think we got the message repeatedly that it seems like the school system, the setup of the expectation of the teachers and the classrooms and even their schedule wasn't that friendly to boys. So. Or they were quickly labeled. In kindergarten, one of my boys came home really upset one day saying, Mommy, the teacher said I had too much energy. And it was this horrible insult label that the teacher made him feel so sad about.
Yeah.
Or there's an expectation from the schools or from the instructors or teachers that boys have to be logical. So one of the boys was coloring something and he colored the face of the whatever character blue. So the teacher said, well, that's a little boy. Faces aren't blue. And he looked at the teacher and he says, it's just a drawing. It's not real. So, give them that space. Whereas a lot of times, if a girl does something, they're expected to be creative and
out of the box.
And out of the box,
yeah.
and have all foo-foo colors and stuff. And I think that's working with the schools to redirect that and compensating for that at home. I think has made a difference for our boys.
That's tough, because I remember I struggled with that with my second son, like how the school would view him and how I think I understand my son. I think, and for the longest time he was actually put down until in 8th grade he had a very special teacher who actually was able to see beyond his quirkiness and idiosyncrasies, and was able to actually accept him for who he is, and he blossomed after that. So it's tough. Yeah. So
it is tough, and what you set up at the educational system, especially for boys, it's not set up for boys. They need activity. They need more hands-on things to do. They need to be able to get up. Their attention span is very short. It is,
and that
less
doesn't
than
make
the
them
girls.
inferior to girls.
It doesn't.
No,
that's
it
the
doesn't.
part. They get that message. They come home with that message that so and so's teacher always picks on her. Well, probably because she sits nice and neat in class, raises her hand, and maybe he should do that more. But that doesn't mean he's less intelligent or has less room to explore or less to offer.
That's true. And the challenges that you were facing. One of them about the parents, both parents being on the same page. You were raised in different ways, and you've come together to make a family, and you have different views on life, and you have different views on children, and to try to get that together to present a united front. Doug and I, we can disagree in private, but in front of the kids, we always presented a united front on whatever the challenge was, and we never took our disagreement
in front of the kids,
regarding a child raising issue or child rearing issue.
Right.
But now that my kids are older, and I don't know if you've faced any of these, but when I'm going to tell you the challenges. What are the obvious ones when you're talking about teenagers and young adults?
Yeah.
You're talking sex, drugs, and alcohol, and because it's out there, the availability, the exposure, the internet gives them access to
pornography,
just everything is out there. You have children in school when they're in high school, and they have peers who are drinking and peers who are using drugs. And I'm not talking about public schools, I'm talking about private schools also. And how do you protect your children from that? And how much do you need to protect them from that? And one of the biggest challenges that we have faced is, how do you protect your kids? You have girls who are walking down the street, walking in school, and if they were at the beach, they might have
more clothes.
They'd have a bathing suit cover up, on top of that. Or your children want to go to a friend's house, and they have access to alcohol at the friend's house, and the parents don't mind that their child would have a drink. And so you learn things as you go along, and you have to pick up little hints from your children. One comes home and says, "Oh, I was at my so and so's house, and the dad pulled out a bottle of wine and asked me if I wanted some wine, and and his friend was, and he said, no, I don't drink, and Mom, I think I need to come home, and
How
so
sweet.
and so it's you look at that and you say, we gave them a good foundation, and it really comes back to the foundation that you lay for them, the foundation in Islam, and you're giving your children tools on how to
lead their life. Yeah.
How to resist the temptation that's in front of them. If we think about all the temptations that we see as adults, and hopefully at this mature level, and you see temptation, things around you, how do these children deal with it?
They have to make decisions.
They have to make decisions.
Yeah.
And they are children, even teenagers.
Right.
They are children. How do they deal with that? And you pray that you've set the foundation for them, and you talk to them, and you keep open lines of communication, and you have to talk to them, and you have to face reality and talk to your kids to say, yes, you are attracted to a girl.
Yes.
She's cute. She really is cute. But let's think about, how do you keep that in your Muslim perspective?
Absolutely.
How do you do that? Alcohol. It's attractive. You find your friends out there and they're drinking and they're having just a fabulous time while they're doing it. But how do you put that in your life as a Muslim? It doesn't mean that Islam is inhibiting you. It means that Islam is giving you a foundation to lead a healthy life, and why you have to look at Islam, your life as a whole,
right,
and not just, okay, when I go home I pray, but when I'm at school, I'm, Islam,
right,
you're throwing it off on the side because it's not cool in front of my friends to say no to this or no to that. I have one of my 18-year-old, he played football. He played football throughout high school. And it happened that this year, there are two-a-days. I don't know if you're familiar with the two-a-days, which is like the 2 weeks right before football season starts. They have 2 practices a day.
Wow.
They start, 8 to 11 in the morning, and then they come back in the afternoon for a second, 3 or 4 hours of football practice.
Intense.
And so it was during Ramadan. His two-a-days were the first 2 weeks of Ramadan, and the first 2 weeks of the season were
the last 2 weeks of Ramadan.
And so, Adam, how are you going to deal with this? What are you going to do? What's your priority?
Yeah.
You have your priority to God.
Yeah.
You have your commitment to school. You committed to play on the football team. You figure out how you're going to do this. And so he said, this year, I'm a team captain. I can't expect my coach to treat me differently just because I'm fasting. But I can't not fast, so I need to see how to do this. So he would sleep more. He would make sure that he would wake up for his suhoor, drink plenty of fluids. He'd eat, and he'd go do his football in the morning, come back, hop in the pool, cool down, sleep, get up and go back for his second practice. And he did that. He fasted all of Ramadan, mashallah. And he played football, and he was the team captain.
Mashallah.
And he said, this is, he said, this is where my character was tested. My character was never tested before.
As this difficult. Wow.
At this point. He said, and this is where it was tested, and I'm proud of myself that I was able to say, I can integrate both parts of my life into one whole
that fits nicely.
Yeah.
I think the piece that struck me is in your conversation with him. You asked him a question. You said, what are your priorities? And then you said, how are you going to do it? So I didn't hear from you saying, okay, it's Ramadan, you have to fast.
This is what you should do.
And this is what you should do. It seems like what I'm getting from you is like it was a conversation and you allowed him that space to make that decision.
Yes. I will tell you honestly, everything with my children at this point in their lives, everything that has to do with religion is a conversation. I invite them to come pray. I give them advice, but this is their relationship with God.
Allah. Yeah.
And if they don't implement that in their life, I can't force them. I can force them to come pray with me at this moment in time, but that doesn't mean that
it's going to be lasting.
It's not lasting.
No.
They're not creating it. It's not from their love. It's because mom said I have to do this.
And it's like your responsibility as a parent is to establish the foundation and plant the seeds and guide. And then they have to make that decision.
They have to make the decision.
It's their journey. It's their spiritual journey. And Allah gave us the free will to choose. It's a very difficult situation, by the way. I mean, I'm not saying it's very easy for parents to look at their children and see when they're actually not following the straight path. It's a very difficult.
I agree with you.
I think it's the most difficult test a parent can have. To look and see if there's a child of your own that's actually not on the same page with you when it comes to religion.
That's true. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But everybody has their journey. And
absolutely.
They reach that level at a different point in their life.
Absolutely.
But the foundation is laid.
And that's your responsibility. Your responsibility is not to force. Your responsibility is to establish the foundation and plant.
And that's one of the
seeds.
challenges, actually, of
Yeah.
for me as a
Yeah.
parent, is at what point in time do I say, I've done my job,
Yeah.
and the rest is
So-
up to them and God
and Allah.
and Allah, and
Yeah.
He will guide them. But
Right.
I've done the best that I can.
I think we will continue to guide and continue to say.
Oh.
I don't think
We
we'll
always
ever
will.
give up
No,
that.
of course not.
Right.
You can't stop.
No.
And you're listening to Family Connection streaming live on One Legacy Radio, and we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. You are listening to Family Connection streaming live at One Legacy Radio, and with us today are Hala Elfi and Yaman Kahf, and we're talking about raising boys. And before the break, we were talking about the challenges that you've been through, Hala, in raising your boys. I want to talk about how do you teach your boys masculinity? And, this question has come up. I've asked, friends and stuff. And usually the answer I always get is teaching them to be respectful and teach them to be responsible. And how do you do that as they become men? Because boys are going to become men, and that's our goal in raising them. So what do you think?
That's a loaded topic. I think anytime you talk about masculinity or femininity, we have to make sure we're using the same standards on either side. The Quran says, وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى, that the male is not like the female. It doesn't mean that it's not a value judgment about one or the other, but just as we shouldn't define femininity by masculine things like Nusayba was wonderful because she went into battle, but that's more associated with the masculine trait. So it's not the masculine. It's not of going outside of her femininity, so to speak, that makes her special. It should be special within its own definition.
Right. Well, that the culture we're in right now is the one that's focusing on looking at the traits within women. Where they are more similar than men. So
right. As opposed to highlighting what's truly genuine about each gender.
And we want to emphasize we're not talking about them being non-equal. They're both equal in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in their humaneness. But we're talking about physically, biologically, they are different. And because of that, they have different responsibilities. Yeah,
absolutely, and they have to rise up to those responsibilities one day. And our whole family structure, our hierarchy in when you die and need to divvy out your wealth is based on certain assumptions of responsibility as well. And those assumptions of responsibility need to be built in. It's not just about being chivalrous. It's about are you going to earn whatever leadership you're tasked with.
Right.
So I know as a child, there was one incident where I have a sister that's less than a year older than me. And we had saved up money and bought our parents a gift. And my dad asked me, who paid how much? And he kind of made a point to say that, and it really stuck with me, to say that, you need to pay more than her because even though she's older, you're actually tasked with supporting her if she needs it. So you can start. So split it like 60-40, he said. Yeah. Even though you're younger, split it 60-40 next time. Don't do it 50-50.
How old were you at that time?
It was grade school, probably 4th or 5th grade. But
look at that. Like how young he's instilling in you that you are responsible for your family and your dependents. And your sister could be one of them.
Yes. Since she was older and bossier, that was hard to take. But it was a point well made. I think that there's, with masculinity, it's a really big topic. But for example, a lot of our sisters, may Allah reward them, are very keen to point out to their husbands that, the Prophet ﷺ used to clean up around the house and sew and help his wives. But they don't really teach their boys that. And if you're going to teach that to another male, whether it's your son or your husband, don't beat them over the head with it. Teach them that there's value in it. Teach them that there's masculinity in that, and that there's a reward, for it. Maybe when kids are smaller, they they respond to rewards they see and know. Something as simple as a nice hug of acknowledgement and give them a verbal acknowledgement, to a special treat or a special dinner or something along those lines.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah, you have to teach it on both sides, and I don't think there's ever going to be a husband and wife that's completely on the same page. But you really have it's such a it's such a cooperative effort, and I think it a lot of times what I see with younger couples especially is that the sisters are very keen to all the things that on her side are not her rights or responsibilities, but then the guys are left really confused on, okay, well, is it really masculine of me to help out and do the dishes and all that, and guys tease each other behind the scenes as well. So they do need guidance on what is within a reasonable, for a guy to do and what's not.
And I think we will have maybe different standards within different families, and different definitions too. So
I don't know about you, but we struggle because there aren't any girls. I mean, my wife is the lone female, so I think that she tries to go overboard in certain ways. I don't know with 5 boys how you've handled that.
Even
our parrot and our cat
I agree with you.
Our bird are boys.
It's just, defining masculinity. It's you want your son to be kind but athletic. You want him to be compassionate but tough. You want him, there's so many different ends of the spectrum of what you want from your son. That all defines what masculinity is. And, you look at, if they watch TV, you look at the male roles on TV are, they're just like blubbering men who have no personality, and the wife, twirls them around her finger. And that's the role of the male that they see on TV. And so you have to take that, what's out in society and what's out in pop culture, and say, no, that is not what a real man is. A real man is caring. A real man does help around the house. They can clean their room. They can pick up their clothes. They know how to do laundry. They know how to do dishes. They know how to. I don't want to relate it just that they can do things around the house, but just that there is a kindness and a compassion and a tenderness that is also masculine.
Absolutely.
You can't say, no, you're a boy, don't cry.
Absolutely.
No, it's okay to cry. It's okay to express your emotions. And that's really where that masculinity, I think, comes in, that all of those elements are balanced in the boys.
That thing about feelings is oftentimes reinforced by society in all cultures, where my son was playing with some kids the other day, and one of the other moms said to her daughter, don't play with him, he's a boy. So there's an assumption that the boy is going to be insensitive or rough. And like you said, he can be tough, but they need to have an awareness of their emotions and of the feelings and needs of those around them as well.
And to be able to express themselves.
Right. Absolutely.
It's not that quiet man just sitting in the background. They do need to express.
They need to learn that,
and they have to learn it.
And we need to train them. Like, I think it's the parents who actually provide that space for that training. Like, if I am looking at my sons and saying, oh, you're upset, you're angry, I mean, go ahead and tell me what's going on and have that conversation. Like, it's okay for you to have feelings, and I'm going to talk to you about them, and I want to hear about them. But as you were saying earlier, if you say, no, you can't cry, you're a boy, then what is the message we're sending? Is like, no, you can't have feelings, basically.
Right.
And I had the privilege of actually having 2 boys and 2 girls. So as you're answering this question, I'm reflecting on what were some of my practices at home. And honestly, I'm trying to think. I think for all of them, I was emphasizing the message that you all need to be responsible. So it doesn't, the chore is not related to the gender. Like, we're all part of the family. We're all members of this family, and everybody's going to contribute. So whenever I would have like a party, a dinner party, it was like basically an emergency at home, and all the kids would be in the kitchen. And I have actually parents look at me like, you have your boys in the kitchen with you? I say, yeah. So they would be wrapping samosas, they would be frying, the samosas, setting the tables and all of that. But I think where it was different a little bit, maybe if there was like heavy stuff to be carried, I would actually try to get the boys to do it more than the girls and talk about, you girls are, going to be the carriers of the future generations. You need to be taking care of your back because, you could hurt yourself.
And the Prophet ﷺ says, رِفْقًا بِقَوَارِيرَ, that be gentle with the delicate vases, I guess.
Right.
Meaning be gentle with the women in your life.
Right. And it's not like because they can't do it. They can, but it's just like accepting, their physical limitations. So
since we don't have girls, my boys know that there's certain things, and I'm quoting here, but they can't see it. I forbid my wife to do, which is in quotes, of course, is like take out the garbage. I think I freaked out once when she tried to use a power drill, not because she couldn't, and she makes a regular point of doing all those things just to prove to the boys and remind them that she can. It's not an ability thing, but I want to leave something for them to be able to pick up that slack. I really get bent out of shape if she's coming home carrying groceries and all the boys are just sitting inside.
Absolutely.
Right. Not that she can't carry the groceries. And sometimes she'll shoo them back in. She's like, I got it, go away. But again, to make the point. But the point should also be made, that with some prompting, go out and help your mother, take out the garbage. I'll go out.
But I think that's the huge point. I think a lot of
they need to be prompted,
right,
and trained, and trained.
Absolutely. But it's not like, oh, he's just a boy, just leave him, and I think those of us who have only boys, we're like, well, they're the only ones that are there to help, and we expect that. But sometimes maybe in families that are girls and boys, it's this assumption like, the boys, it's okay, leave them. But
I think one of the keys here that you said that I think is fantastic. It's not just that their mom is saying, "Come out and help me," but
the other part,
as the dad are saying, "Sons, you need to help. You need to help go out and bring in the groceries, and you have to carry the heavier load because
absolutely,
it's the dad instilling that in their children."
So basically, what he's doing is teaching them like the respect between the spouses, and like also you need to respect the other. The parent, like
I know even as a mom, my husband does the same thing, and it's like you said, oh, I know I can carry them in, but that my sons feel like, oh, this is, like I'm helping her. And I think that's an important thing. They need to feel of use in the home in whatever way it may be. So
and what a beautiful thing for the spouse to feel supported by the other spouse, like, cared for. Okay. So we have about maybe a couple of more minutes. So we wanted to ask you maybe quickly, if you would share with us a lesson that you learned the hard way.
Okay. I will tell you. And, this really has to do with sometimes listening to your children and to things that they say, because you'll find out something about yourself. I had, and this actually happened quite recently, and that's why it's still fresh in my mind. I have my youngest son who said to me, "Mom, you never listen to me." And that, I was thinking, what do you mean I never listen to you? I always listen to you. You're always talking and I'm listening, and I'm listening to what you're saying. And what I realized is that if he didn't think that I was listening to him, it didn't matter what that I thought I was. Absolutely. I really wasn't. Absolutely. And so I had to take a step back and say, okay, I need to be a more active listener with my children, not just that if he's talking to me and I have to make the time. Right. Because sometimes he would come to say, Mom, this, and he'd start talking. I'd say, not now, I'm in the middle of something. Let me come back to you in a little bit. And I'd go back, and at that point in time,
it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
That moment was gone. And so when your children want to talk to you, stop what you're doing. It doesn't matter what it is. It is not as important as listening and having a conversation with your son.
And when they're older, it's not going to take a long time.
No,
it's just no. I'm dead serious. It's gonna be really a few minutes. So really,
if you're
if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, you get text messages. The communication. The communication goes down to text messages.
That's what's happening with me right now. Because all of my kids are older.
But I try to connect. I have my 3 older kids. Don't live at home. I have one who lives on the East Coast, one's on the West Side, and one's in San Diego. And I try that once a week I connect with each of them. Even if it's for a minute on the phone. Fortunately, the one in West LA, we have lunch together once a week, and that's lovely. That's fantastic. And but with the ones that are at home and you know that they're
There,
with you. You think
yeah.
that you have all the time in the world,
But you don't.
but you don't. And so listen to your kids.
And drop everything that you're doing when they actually come near you and try to talk to
Yes.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Beautiful.
you. So, Yaman, any hard lessons?
Um,
I'm sure there were many.
Yeah,
I mean,
there were many.
no parent goes without the hard lessons. So,
Actually, I don't think this one was one of the hardest ones, but it was one recently with one of the kids and years ago with the other, in that, you know, when they're young, you try and enroll them in sports and give them an opportunity to explore different sports. And in both the boys, these two boys' cases, they're really bad at whatever sport they were in. One was in soccer way back when, and one is in basketball now. And I came home from watching basketball. Told my wife, we have to take him out. This is going to kill his confidence, and it's so sad. Nobody picked him to be on the team captain. But then she reminded me that, he's great at all these other things. He's great at these other sports. And when your kid falls and he's little, you want to go and pick him up and hold him and make sure he doesn't go near that playground again. And I think that for me, it was just knowing that I could let go. He could fall, make a fool of himself, be the last picked on the team, but he still learned sportsmanship. He learned that there was other team members that were relying on him, and then he learned that there's certain things he's not good at, and all that is fine. I just I couldn't bear the thought of seeing him fail at something, especially sports, because that's so out there, it's so in your face, it's so obvious.
yeah,
But I think just being able to pull back was hard for
that's
me.
very difficult. Letting go of our children, whether they're failing, whether they are choosing different choices, is extremely, extremely difficult for parents. One of the toughest. Yeah. So we're coming to the end of the show. Thank you, both of you, so much for being here. We really enjoyed it. It was a fun time.
It was. And
yeah.
I think your experiences just, I think all of us can benefit from them and
Absolutely
relate to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nothing like real life experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah. And thank you for our listeners for tuning in. This is Noha AlShugairi.
And this is Munira Zadine, and you're listening to Family Connection on One Legacy Radio.
And remember, a strong family for a strong community. Be there, connect, encourage, and love.